generate some giggles. Sure, you've seen that one in pastoral care. It's not all about you. That's very key. 90% of consumers trust peer recommendations. Only 14% trust advertising. This is important. So look at how important that is to find. So besides using this as a tool to kind of get us thinking about social media and have a perspective, you might also want to use this as a tool if you're going to sit down and talk about communications in your organization, whether it be oriented around a new mission initiative or like came up in our missions committee meeting the other night. How do we get the word out about a new event? This would be a good place to start. Show the video, let people begin talking about it and see what emerges as possibilities. There is so much you can do in social media, and I'm about to show you several platforms. There's so much you can do. You don't have to do it all. But whatever you do, you need to do well. So let's go to the second slide. Oh, you know, one thing I want to do, this would be a good time if anyone has any questions, or if there were any statistics on there that, you know, shocked you, like the fact that more people have cell phones than toothbrushes. It gets the dentist active in most audiences.
Let's go here. All right, we got your PowerPoint back up there.
Any questions?
Not seeing any so far.
There'll be time. So let's move on. The next thing I want to just touch on is what I call the big five. There's one more that you could add, be the big six, but I started in 2008 doing research on social media platforms, and for about 10 months really focused in and then delivered that information to a Microsoft client I was working for. But these were the big five at that time that I determined: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, blogging, and video. The reason LinkedIn was first, it was a B2B, business-to-business environment, and that was the tool to use for them. And Facebook at that time, 2008 and 2009, hadn't reached the prominence that it is now. I mean, Facebook is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's no different than the telephone book was at one point. Everybody had a phone book and a phone, or at least it seemed that way. Twitter has been around and is used from everything from publishing to constant communication. Blogging, I hold that out because it's so important for long-form content. So a tweet is 140 characters. I don't know very many people who could do a sermon in a tweet. And maybe they shouldn't, or
maybe they should.
Maybe they should. For the rest of the story, go to my blog. That'd be a fun contest. Maybe I ought to do that at General Conference, kind of have a tweet off sermon going, let the laity vote. But anyway, so blogging is a chance to really to do some storytelling, as is video. And what is working today is storytelling. Yeah. Telling a story, reaching people, having meeting, and connecting. It's the very opposite of what people say. Social media is so surface. Mm-hmm. You're on here, you don't see anyone, but yet we yearn for it. Mm-hmm. We want to feel that connection, have that. So online versions of that usually show up in blogs and video. But you do have to entice people to get there, and that's where social media comes in. I have a model that'll highlight that in a little bit. But the idea is, on Facebook, you might say, incredible story about XYZ. Mm-hmm. Everything you wanted to know about life found in Psalms. Mm-hmm. And then the link is to the blog. Right. And that's where you can have longer content.
The short form leads to the longer and deeper form. It's right there. Yeah.
Right.
Do you want to take a quick question before we go
Sure.
on the next part, which is Katie says, I've heard that Facebook is slowly becoming less popular to the younger crowd. How do we reach out to them? I know that some of that will be covered later on, but is that statistic still bearing out? Would you find that to be true? And what's that going to mean for us?
Yes and no. So it's kind of like saying they're not using the phone book, but they're still using the phone. They're still on the device. Some of them still have Facebook account. Facebook is still a medium. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was sitting in a group, and when Prince died last week, I got the message on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I saw the message, and then I hit the link, and it took me to Fox News for the full story. Mm-hmm. So that kind of models what's going on there. In that teen market, usually Instagram is a lot more relevant. Mm-hmm. So for the church overall, you want to have a Facebook strategy. For teen ministry, you probably want to have an Instagram strategy. Mm-hmm. Do you need an Instagram strategy for the whole church? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. You can decide that. If you're not doing either, I would start with the youth, see how it goes, and then test it with some adults going, do you use it? Do you like it? Do you want it? What have you? Awesome. The one other thing on this page before we leave on is YouTube or video in general. And the biggest mistake we make is too long. Mm-hmm. So 30 seconds to a minute is an interest-getting video. That's where you entice someone, and they will make an evaluation. Do I want to learn more? Right. So if it's how-to, you can make it longer. Mm-hmm. But if it's attention-getting, sharing a little information, then it needs to be short. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be fancy. Thank goodness the bar has brought down. I mean, I would expect most of the videos shot here by church leaders is above the bar. Yeah. There's some rank stuff out there.
Oh my gosh.
So
my son watches, he's 10, he's a huge YouTube fan. And as a person who produces video, I'm just appalled, but he's still watching it. He's still consuming it. He doesn't care that it's shaky or that the color correction wasn't done right, which is good news for the rest of us. We don't have to work so hard on the stuff we put out.
It's similar to in speaking. Mm-hmm. If you don't say or all at all, you can be perceived as too slick. Yeah. If you do and all and right too much, it's obnoxious, and people wonder about your speaking abilities. So, but anyway, so that's kind of the big five. I will ask a question. What do you think would be a platform that would be added to that, and we'd change it to the big six? Vote now. Operators are standing by.
Yeah, feel free to go ahead and weigh in. You can use the Q&A box or the chat box. Just tell us, what do you think? What do you think if this was the big six? What would number 6 be? I bet there's some of our folks who probably already know, but they may be afraid to answer.
Well, I'll give you a hint. It starts with G.
Well, I had something in my head until you said that. Now,
what were you thinking?
We got one in the Q&A. Google. That's what Katie White says. Starts with a G.
Yeah, Google Plus. So
Google Plus.
This is their third attempt at a social media platform.
First ones didn't go out so well.
No, they didn't. And I got to give them credit. After the success of these others, why would you go? Mm-hmm. What are you offering? So they really built what I'd called a best-in-class platform,
Mhm.
the video chat capability, and integration with documents and all, but it doesn't matter if people aren't going to use it. So you find in some markets, the engineers, the techies, the social media people have been on it, and in some international markets. So for example, it shows up in Mexico in some ways as being used a lot. Right now, I suggest places make sure that they go to googlemybusiness.com to make sure that their profile. And then if you want to add to that, or if you want to add your Google presence, you do that through a Google Plus account. If you or you create a Google Plus page, Google will pull that information like hours of operation, parking, cost, pictures, and those kind of things. And it's good for search engine optimization. So it's helpful from that standpoint. And if you're publishing like we're about to talk about, and you're making a post on Facebook, Twitter, you can go ahead and send the same thing maybe out to Google Plus, because that's going to help from a social media content. But unless you target, or unless you find that there's a market or a community that's on there that you want to reach, I don't really propose it as a tool for you and I to get together and chat on.
Right.
It hasn't made it into the mainstream like that.
So for our Rio, Texas churches, if you're on as a viewer, that stuff you said about getting Google My Business and getting your profile on there, we're glad to help with that. A lot of our churches email us and say, I thought I did everything right, but I'm not showing up on Google. And, we help them make that little adjustment, and it makes huge, huge differences. And
it can be convoluted. I know they've tried to make it easy, but I run across people that have more than one Google account. They'll have one more brand page. If they take over a location, how do you get rid of the old information? How do you get missing information? So if anyone has those questions, I do some of that communication. Have an 800 number to Google.
Elizabeth also tells us, it's true, you can get the data from Google about your Google business page, how many visitors a month. And there's a lot of stuff. Google gives out so much free information that, if you're interested, it's good to look at.
Can I jump off on that?
Sure can.
Analytics in general is a very important part of what's going on in churches, trying to respond and shift and focus. And there's so much data. I'd simply suggest you put out a call to people who really have a passion for that, and allow them to help and offer that as a part of what their ministry support is. As pastors and leaders, you don't have time to be an expert in everything. And those people can sometimes bring those 2 or 3 nuggets that are really relevant, like a shift in the population or the use of, the more you do this, you want to know how is it working.
Right. Yeah.
What platform's better.
So an interesting thing before we move on from here, and one of the suggestions for the Big Six was WhatsApp, and that kind of shifts that in a different direction into the Snapchat and
let's go to the next page.
All right, excellent. See, he knew where we were going. All right.
So, like I said, that first page came out of a business communication focus, which in some way that overlays on top of what we're doing in church and ministry. Then you get to what I call the ones to watch or others. And the difference in the two group is the first group tends to be very mainstream and easier to do, to cast a broad net. These tend to be more specific and require you to be a little more on purpose. We gave an example of Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope. If you're going to use these tools, it needs to be with a specific market in mind, and then you've got to stick with it and use it. And you can cultivate. I mean, I don't know if anyone nationally is using Periscope as a way to live broadcast their sermon. You can. It's as easy as this.
We have a few churches who are experimenting with it.
Yeah.
That's what they moved to.
And that's what I would suggest. Try some. And of course, the thing we always have to watch is, once we start it, do we have to keep it? So make sure you set up expectations that if this is a pilot project, the pilot will end. And then we'll decide, so that you don't get into promoting a program and have trouble killing it because there's 3 people that absolutely love it. And can't get by without it.
Hey, it's interesting when you talk about Periscope and in churches live streaming it. I think one of the other things we forget about is you can do more than one thing. So I was talking to a church who had one live streaming solution, saying we're thinking of switching to Periscope. And then, well, you can, but you can also do both. You could also set up an iPhone in the back of the room and catch that audience that is interested in that medium, but still have that live stream, the standard one that your folks have been getting used to using. So
yeah, and I will tell you, as I prepared for our visit today, it was that kind. Well, we're getting to the main message here. That is, once we get the technology set up, then what? Once we can publish our events and show pictures from our events, now what? Where is the meaningful connection? So if we do that through a Periscope and we have someone dedicated to support it, just like any other ministry, they go, we ought to feed the homeless at the shelter. If you practice ministry right, you cultivate that, and you have some leaders come together, 2 or more, and then they shepherd that. You can do the same thing around technology, and you may have somebody who has a real interest. I'd suggest you look for someone who's maybe below 24 and above 40, and pair them together, because then you get the wisdom and you get the technology intuitiveness, and then together they make a good team.
Right.
But to use these tools on here effectively, you need it's a more targeted strategy, as opposed to this broad swath of we can use Facebook kind of for everybody.
Yeah, sort of broadcast versus specific channels. I mean, in some ways, Facebook really has become a broadcast network, but these are not. And so, okay, great. All right.
I think I have one more slide, and then we'll move more into the open discussion, because this answers how do I keep up. And I developed this model to kind of put the pieces together. So the top bar across the top is your website. And I view the website as everything and anything that is relevant about your organization. The only thing you don't put on there is the secret sauce, which in our world, it means we probably wouldn't be doing communion on there, or baptism on there. But almost anything else, there's information that relates. Now, I recently got an email from an organization who said, come to our event. And I went on their website, and I couldn't find the time, the location, or anything. So the reason I mentioned this is you need to be in multiple. And that's why I say anything that you are or do, or, this is your online repository, is the idea. But then the problem is the bigger it gets, the harder it is to find things. So you make sure you have some ability to search the website, a little search. And then the social media is usually the connecting point. So I see something on Facebook or Twitter or a link in Snapchat or whatever, and then I go from the social media to that website or even a blog or a video for longer form content. It's kind of like being in Facebook and you post something and then you go to the messaging system to actually have a conversation. It's just linking.
I think that your graphic is fantastic in that a lot of churches are missing that. Either they've skipped the website and gone straight to Facebook and don't have the website, or they'll just simply post something on Facebook and fail to link it back to fail to believe that someone might go, oh, I might like to learn more about that, and follow it to the website. So that I like that foundational piece on top there.
Let me mention one thing about blogging. I had a question at an event I was at earlier in speaking, and they asked about, well, on that blog, are you interacting with people? And the answer would be yes and no. So kind of think of a spectrum, and on one end of the spectrum, you publish only and you don't take any comments because you need the long form to publish and link. And the other end of the spectrum, you're on there every day. You live and die and breathe. This is your passion. You're blogging about, and you're interacting with people. So you need to kind of figure out where you are on the spectrum. And which of these channels are you really going to use for interaction? I don't know that you need them all.
And I think most churches would have trouble supporting them all. I mean, unless they really found niche ministry folks who really felt called to that. If you had more than one or two, one would probably start to go fallow, and you get caught in that problem that someone finally does engage with you and you weren't there to respond.
And like any other ministry, people will come and go. So we need to think about legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're going to use, say, a blog, maybe let's say we do a blog called Conversation with the Pastors.
Mm-hmm.
And someone is responsible for taking the sermon of the day,
Mm-hmm.
posting it there, and doing interaction. I mean, that might be an interesting ministry.
Right.
But then I would suggest we manage that just like any other ministry. Someone may bring that and start it. Then we have someone else come in to help manage it.
Mm-hmm.
Then that person's going to fall off at the end of the calendar year or something.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of think just like we do any other kind of mission or ministry work, that social media needs that same kind of attention and planning and support.
Yeah. Great. So we had a question jump in. We can take this before you move on. How does LinkedIn feel about churches or religious organizations? Some people jump on folks who post non-business info.
I would say that it goes beyond LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some platforms are more open to it than others.
Mm-hmm.
And it would really depend on the group that you have visited. Attracted. So if I had 500 people on my LinkedIn profile and they were all in ministry, then it would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a broader market, which I do, I have to be more careful
Mm-hmm.
of, in general, what am I getting on my soapbox on?
Right.
But if I want to strategically use LinkedIn in ministry, then I just need to use the language and speak the voice that is business-like.
Right.
So does leadership issues in church affect leadership issues in other nonprofits and in business? I mean, do we have the same problems?
Right.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's some subject matters that would overlap just fine. Leadership is a perfect example of it.
Right.
Organizational structure,
Mm-hmm.
hiring and firing, growing,
Mm-hmm.
improving communication. So we could probably come up with a list of 10 or more topics that no matter what kind of organizational structure, it would be useful.
Right.
So those are the easy ones to talk about. And the hard ones are going to be if you're going to be more specific to the point and ask someone, are you coming to church? Have you come to Christ? Do you know what it means to be saved? Well, of course, on any platforms, those are going to be more challenging. I find that in the way Methodists typically practice our faith, we have some kind of relationship established before we spring that on there. Hey, you saved? I mean, I know we're only on the bus for a minute, but just wanted to check it. Usually it's through relationship that we have those conversations in person. So I suggest the same thing online.
Yeah, so it'd be less, format specific. It'd be more sort of cultural insensitivity to the culture of LinkedIn, which is, mostly about business and skills and jobs. It would just seem out of tune to where you are.
So I have an example that came up this last week on Facebook. So I have a friend of mine that I know through my alumni organization, and we've done some business together. And he's probably, I think he's about 28. And he saw people commenting about Target's policy on bathroom usage.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
He did a masterful job of saying, first of all, I'm really trying to figure this out. Here's some things that I've seen. I would like to hear from you. Oh, for the next 3 or 4 days, the comments were really good. And he'd comment back, John, you brought up a good point. Why am I all of a sudden worried about sexual deviance now? Did they not exist prior to the change in the law? So just all kinds of things came out of it. And I thought, here's a guy in business. He does websites, taking on a very relevant topic in our society and our church. And I thought, man, I'd like to hire him to write for me, or, I wish I could do that.
Didn't alienate anybody from he just put the question out there. Wow.
But I think that is an example, not in the church. It could have been. Mm-hmm. It could have just and easy been a seminary student. Mm-hmm. But it was handled very well on that platform with his friends. He asked his friends for help, and they responded. Yeah. So could you do that on LinkedIn? I'm not so sure it'd go over as well in the big overall group, but one of the powers of LinkedIn is groups.
Yeah.
So if you had, all you would need is a faith-oriented group. Mm-hmm. And if there's not one, you can start one. It doesn't cost anything. And the reason you might want to do that would be if there are people on that platform that you feel could use the conversation that you want to reach, then that would make sense.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting you use the platform just because they're there.
Yeah, great. All right. All right. And so Elizabeth followed up. I'm really feeling clear about how LinkedIn is used by a church. My understanding is job connecting space. And I think she's right. I think that it's really not designed as a thing for evangelism. Now, the beauty of social media is often, every technology now is often used for things other than what it was designed for. But the current culture on LinkedIn seems to be like that's
So
not
let me back into this by saying that, LinkedIn is really a place where subject matter experts connect.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, it pushed Monster.com out of their place as the number one place people go to connect for jobs.
Right.
And the tools have developed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really become that. I would also say that it is really shifted more of its resources that way. However, before you write LinkedIn off, you need to look at that other camp within LinkedIn, which is what I call business leaders and subject matter expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go into the group called social media marketing or social media mavens, you're going to see conversations about social media.
Right.
It is more business oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So think about, is a part of your ministry, if a part of your ministry was reaching business people, you might want to use it, but I'm not saying you do.
Yeah. Which goes back to the original stuff you talked about, is if you were out in the world offering things to people and the church had something to offer to the business community that was attractional, then maybe that's where they would live, if that's where they wanted to do ministry.
Yeah. So last fall, I went to this big prayer breakfast in Atlanta. There must have been 500 people there. And it was very tech-centric. It was all business people,
Mm-hmm.
and it was published on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But it was called the Business Prayer Breakfast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a great example. So yeah, it's yes and no, and we'll see, and great. All right.
The only other thing on there is there's an SEO that just popped up on the screen.
Yep.
For search engine optimization, and all your social media content that you publish and everything has a great effect on how easy it is to find you.
Right.
So to me, I suggest that if someone Googles your church name
Mm-hmm.
or your organizational name on Google, it ought to create what's called a billboard effect.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the church website, the Facebook, the Twitter, the whatever, the articles in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's that kind of presence. And if you visually see that, there's a good indication that Google or other search engines are going to see that.
Yeah.
The other thing that Google is optimized for right now with their last version that they put out, it's answering questions.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do you think the church has any answers to questions
Hmm.
or would like to weigh in on some? So if you can create that kind of format, or if you already have it going on and now you can share it online, that helps create a higher profile online for you, because you're doing relevant questions that people are searching for,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be about, euthanasia,
Mm-hmm.
marriage and divorce,
Mm-hmm.
what have you.
Because content, for search engines is the driver now. And when you look at most church websites, the content is just, well, here's stuff about our church. But the church has a lot of content. I mean, we've been teaching about the Bible for, a few years now, and we have answers that we present to societal questions and questions and the struggles that parents face and kids face. And, when people go searching for those answers, they don't often find the church's answer.
Yeah. Probably if you're going to get one thing out of this talk,
Mm-hmm.
I hope you get what I'm about to say. You don't have to be the expert,
Mm-hmm.
but people look for you to be the leader.
Yeah.
If you're giving all the answer to these questions in some way, how can we tap into that?
Mm-hmm.
So can a volunteer hear the question, write the answer, give it to you for review, and post it?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if it was good enough material, most leaders or pastors in churches could say, let me see what you got there. All right. I'm pregnant. I'm afraid to say something. My mom, okay. Yeah, that would be a good answer. Go ahead and publish that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be every minute of every day. That could be a daily, a weekly, but America wants to know. We got the answers. We just got to figure out how to use this new medium called social media to communicate.
Great. All right.
Which really kind of feeds into the overarching recommendation I'm having is moving beyond events and pictures to engagement. So like the web designer guy talking about LGBTQ in the bathroom, he did a good job of engaging us. The Q&A, that would be a good way to be engaging, to talk about matters of the heart.
Yeah. So we're open for Q&A, and as you guys start typing those, I'm going to fill in any space that you don't fill, because I always have questions for people. So say the church has, say they're doing the right stuff. They've got a Facebook page. They've got a good website. They're experimenting in other areas. Let's focus on that Facebook page for a minute. What are some just real concrete first steps that they could do on that Facebook page to move to engagement? What are some of those things that?
Well, the funny thing is without the kitty cats and puppy dogs, people don't look at you.
Yeah.
So it's it's a little bit of a two-edged coin. So
get some kitty cats and puppy dogs. Yeah.
Well, and if you left them out and only had hard theological questions, you
Right.
may not even be recognized. So
right.
it's a fine line.
Yeah.
An image is so critical. I would hold up to you this as a test. If someone can look at the picture and see what you're talking about, then it's good for the article or the post.
Yeah.
And if it's not, is it just a kitty cat to get them to read about Daniel in the lion's den?
Yeah. Clickbait.
Clickbait.
Yeah.
Image is important. Title is extremely important, both for Facebook search engine optimization and for the human eyeballs.
Yeah.
So forms of questions is sometimes better than statements, kind of depending. And then if you want to go beyond the surface, what thoughtful message or question is in those few lines that are under a picture? Now, as long as you're not boosting or using the post as advertisement, you can have words across.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they have a rule that says 20%, and it's sometimes hard, and it's fickle. I know a guy ran 2 ads, one with an orange background, one with a green or gray background. One ad was approved, and one ad wasn't, and it had the same amount of text on it. But remind me on boosting. But the critical part of the question is engaging picture that represents the concept, a good title, and then the few lines into there needs to be meaningful also. So, I mean, and relevant. I've heard that Prince didn't have a will. I wonder where he was on his faith. Would be a heck of a conversation right now.
Yeah.
Because it's very, very relevant.
And yeah, just that question.
Yeah.
Great interaction.
So let's talk about boosting
let's
for
talk
just
about
a
boosting.
moment.
I think a lot of folks might be afraid of that or not understand it. So what's the latest thinking on Facebook boosting?
Well, since Facebook went public, they've had to show a profit. And boy, have they done a good job.
Yep.
And where that money has come from is from their advertising. And what that means to you and I, if we're publishing organically and not paying, our content doesn't get the same value. It shows up both in personal accounts. They have an algorithm. So if you and I don't talk for a while, your posts drop out.
Right.
And then on the business side, of course, if you put a little money with it, they're going to show you better.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There are some people that think even organic reach after the money runs out is better because you boosted it, because you put some money, you played their game. I don't know yet. But in short, what you would do is you have to have a credit card or a payment method set up with your Facebook account. That would be on your personal account that is connected to the business page. Then you go in, there's some demographics you can pick. You can just say, send it to everybody who likes my page, or send it to everyone who likes my page and is a friend. I suggest you pick the third one if you're trying to reach new people.
Right.
And then you can pick, I want it to be in this zip code or this community. I want it within 25 miles. And then here's some keywords. So like an orthodontist client that I recently worked with on this, they were really targeting some teens and their mothers. What were the teen mothers looking at on Facebook? do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Dress design. So anyway, you get the idea. They picked keywords because they were trying to reach the teen mothers.
Right.
So you pick the keywords that are relevant for the ministry or whatever you're trying to. Anyway, you put that in there and you can save that as a profile and keep going back to it and say, this could be our overall ministry profile. This could be our youth profile. This could be our Methodist women's profile, our Methodist men's profile. So you can have multiple of those, and then you pick a term. I want to run it for 1, 2, 3 days or longer, and I want to spend $1 a day or $5 a day or $20 over the whole campaign. And before you click go, it'll give you an estimate. Based on this amount of money, you're going to reach 1,200 people. If you change it and add another dollar, now you reach 1,500 people. So it gives you an idea. And then once you do that and put a graphic with it, an image, it runs through a test cycle and they approve it, and then it'll run for however long you say, and you can see the metrics.
Right.
So I encourage people to do that as a way, as a part, instead of the money you may have been spending in print somewhere, if you decrease that, this might be a place to put those dollars. Get used to it so at least you understand the format and the platform and how it works. And then I suggest they watch their regular post. If a post goes from 0 to 100 likes in an hour or interaction, throw a few dollars to it and go even more. Because that's kind of like testing it. Testing it for free, then put dollars with it to go.
And you know, we're not talking about huge amounts of money. I mean, churches, I don't know many churches that don't struggle with budget, but you know, you can be talking about amounts of money of $5 and $10, $15 and $20 that appear to show some significant usage. And man, you just can't buy anything. You can't buy any sort of promotion for anything close to that. I mean, if you're doing that with postcards or mailings, you might as well not do it. The statistical return will be about 0. But on Facebook, $20 will get you your message in front of more people.
And be warned that $20 is the default number. You don't have to spend $20. You can change it to $1.
Let's see. Do you have insight as to when to choose to actually purchase a Facebook ad versus boosting a post? Okay, so there's 2 different things. You know, moving a post up in a timeline and actually doing an ad.
I haven't been overly favorable of ads, because of the at least the way they started being in the right-hand side. I'm a bigger fan of content than advertising. So the organic growth has greater stickiness. The more I have to pay to get something, the less stickiness it is. And stickiness, I mean, will they stay with you? So if I came to follow you because you said 10% off Ray-Bans, that's not much of a friendship. So instead, I'm trying to build friendship. So I'm trying to put a message in front of you in your normal feed that might help us build a relationship. So it's that thinking why I'm big on post and not so much on advertisement. I don't mind it saying sponsored post. I'd rather it not say sponsored ad.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think also, you know, that ability to grow organic out of paid, you know, that you see a post, it's doing pretty good. I put, you know, $20 behind it. Now it's doing really big. And in whether or not Facebook's algorithm continues to count that, if more people saw it, more people shared it, you know, it's already gone further. And so the ads are more limited in what they can do and how they sort of continue to spread. So we'll see. I'm sure in 6 months you might answer that different as Facebook changes. That's the truth about all of them. They're changing all the rules as fast as we can keep up.
The other thing that I want to mention, you know, if you're going to be hyper relevant and give titles of things like Prince versus the Prince of Peace, that's hard to do a month out. So although I talk about planning content, and we're about to get to it in the next slide, a month out and being ready, you also have to be ready for what's happening today. How does this relate to what we're doing? And be ready to comment or to make a post or to even boost a post because of it.
Well, let's move forward there.
So how to keep up is probably the biggest question I get. I would bet everyone listening here already has 1 or more full-time jobs. So I don't need another one. So the model I try to teach is you have a monthly meeting where you come up with some content for the following month. So set aside an hour, plan for next month or 2 months out, depending on how you do your planning. Someone takes responsibility for writing up a post for every day, every other day, every 3 days, once a week, whatever your schedule is. And then once that's reviewed and blessed by the team, someone goes and schedules that in a tool like Hootsuite, or one of the other tools that are out there. I suggest Hootsuite because you can start for free and then you can grow. $10 a month will allow you to do more. If you want to go further up than that, you can. Big brands like Coca-Cola and other companies use it as a part of their social media management platform. But so planning and using a tool for scheduling and listening. I mean, if I want to know what's going on, I can go to Hootsuite on my phone. I can go to it on my desktop, and I can see all these feeds coming in and divided into columns. What's being said on my Twitter, on my Facebook. I can either respond to there. I could assign it to someone else to handle. If they've written one, I could approve it. So it will grow into a management tool if you want to. But from the easiest way to start using it is you can use it to publish out to 3 social media sites for free.
Great.
So plan a month in advance and then listen and respond.
All right. Oh, there's your info. Okay. Let me go back that real quick. The one of the things we use here is we use Buffer, which is a really helpful tool. However, it does not work standalone without these because Buffer doesn't help you respond and watch it. And so take a look at those and yeah, awesome. All right. Well, we're running out of time, but we got one more question at least, and let's see if any more come in. In the past, I've had trouble trying to make an official Facebook page, Twitter, with the little blue check mark. Have you had any trouble, any suggestion on how to get this done? So kind of different rules there between Twitter.
Talking about like validating a page?
Yeah. So Twitter, I have never delved into that realm of how people get Twitter verified.
I haven't had a problem with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a big enough problem that I would say contact a specialist would be the bit, refer it. Kind of like it doesn't make sense for us to go into the discussion right now on how to solve the problems on Google Plus and have multiple accounts. I would put it in that category.
Yeah. And so as far as an official Facebook page, Katie, we might need a follow-up on that because you can create a business page, you can create a fan page. All those seem to be pretty simple to do.
Yep.
But Katie, feel free to email me, and if I don't know the answer, I'll pass it on to JR. If it's something specific that we're missing that maybe we don't have the answer to.
And please offer clarification if you can, Katie. But the one thing I have seen on Facebook is having trouble with who owns it, transferring it, and those kind of issues. Unfortunately, there's not anyone you can call there. You just keep sending the email and messaging and try to work through it.
Yeah, and also, Katie, in our kind of network here in Rio, Texas, talking with communicators and stuff, often we find the answer to a specific church problem by just kind of putting it out there, and someone else says, "Oh, I've had that exact same problem. I can help." So yeah, feel free to pass.
You'll appreciate this because I use this all the time in secular environments. I say whenever I have a question, I got 3 sources I go to: God, Google, and YouTube. And if I can't find it there, I don't need to know it.
It may be that it's an original problem. But let us know, Katie, when you can do that offline. Feel free to email me at wrice@riotexas.org. And if I don't know the answer, I'll pass it on to JR. And if he doesn't know the answer, we'll both go on to Google and YouTube and see what we can find. All right. Well, we're just about out of time, but man, thank you so much for coming by. It's fantastic. I hope all of you learned some stuff. If not, I learned some stuff, so I'm happy. And frankly, that's the most important part. But we appreciate you doing it. Feel free. His contact information is right there on the screen, and you know how to get a hold of me. We'd love to be able to help. Here at the Media Center, we're all about helping churches leverage technology to reach the mission field. So if you have a question about how to do that, or there's an obstacle in your way, let us know, and we find folks like him who can make it easier. So just a thank you there from Susan, and let me pray for us, and then we'll close down. Lord, thank you for this time, for this technology, for this expertise. I love to see folks who sort of learn their way through the world of academics and business, and then feel clarity about how to use what they've learned to help in your kingdom and in your church. Lord, bless this time that we have spent together. Make it multiply to reach even more hearts and minds, and give us safe travels and great and fruitful ministry in the days ahead. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody.